Good afternoon, distinguished panelists, alumni, students, leaders, and professionals of the maritime sector. Colleagues, welcome to this webinar on contemporary maritime governance, bridging global standards with strategic public management. My name is Maria Carolina Romero. I'm the head of the Maritime Law and Policy specialization here at the World Maritime University, together with another professor of the specialization, Professor Aref Fakhri. We gather today at a pivotal moment for our sector. For centuries, maritime governance was characterized by traditional administration marked by rigid compliance, slow-moving bureaucracies, and reactive lawmaking. But the ocean doesn't wait for paperwork. Today, the complexities of decarbonization, digital twins, and global supply chain volatility necessitates a more modern approach. We are witnessing a transition from merely managing the sea to strategically governing it. The core of our discussion today is the move toward new public management and agile governance. In the past, success was measured by whether you check a box on an IMO circular. Today, success is measured by how quickly can a port digitalize without compromising security, how fast can a regulatory framework adapt or even reinvent itself to accommodate autonomous shipping. How do we bridge the gap between international mandates and the operational realities of a local terminal? Real progress is no longer about simple compliance. It is about building sophisticated frameworks that treat governance not as a hurdle, but as a strategic asset for economic growth and environmental stewardship. This webinar is more than just a high-level dialogue. It is a vital pulse check for use at the Maritime Law and Policy specialization. As we modernize our curricula, we are asking ourselves, what does a maritime leader look like in 2026? They must understand that global standards serve as a foundation, not a ceiling. Our goal is to ensure that the academic rigor we provide directly fuels the operational excellence you lead in your respective government offices. For all regulators, how can we foster innovation rather than merely policing it? For our port executives, how do we translate global sustainability goals into competitive advantages? The blue economy is no longer a niche content. It is the backbone of global trade. Over the next few hours, I challenge you to look past the technicalities and focus on the strategic integration of these standards into our daily management. I wish to conclude my keynote address with a quotation. Effective maritime governance is crucial for promoting sustainable development, maintaining orderly use of the ocean, and ensuring economic prosperity. Welcome all of you to this webinar. I would like to hand over the floor to my colleague who will introduce the speakers of today's sessions, Professor Aref Fakhri.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you to our keynote speaker. As we transition to the panel session of this webinar, you can see now popping up a poll, which will run very quickly. You only have 1 minute to select your answer, which has to be a single choice. So I'll let you do that. To our four speakers, thank you very much for making it to this webinar. We have a very tight schedule. To protect our time for the interactive lab, I must ask you to stick strictly to your 10-minute slots. I will provide a gentle signal when 1 minute remains, although we've actually gained a bit of time, so which is a good sign. Mr. Barka Mirajaya of the WMU class of 2012. Mr. Mirajaya is Transportation Attaché and alternate permanent representative of Indonesia to the IMO. I hand the floor over to you, Mr. Mirajaya, for the first panelist presentation.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Arif, for the opportunity. Allow me to begin by thanking WMU for the kind invitation. And also, I would like to sincerely thanks to all participants for your strong interest in this webinar. And I would like to begin my presentation by sharing this in the screen. So I wish that you can see in your screen, and I will share a perspective from the evolving of the global maritime governance landscape, key challenges that we are facing now, and also the future challenges, and also the practical lessons that I like to share from Indonesia audit under the IMSAS framework, and particularly from the implementation and as well as the governance standpoint. So I would like to start with the premise that the maritime governance is becoming increasingly complex, where governments are dealing simultaneously with the rapid regulatory changes, technological disruptions, climate pressures, and geopolitical uncertainty. This requires policy-driven actions, moving into adaptive and forward-looking governance system.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Mirajaya. I think we lost your presentation share.
Can you see it now? Okay.
Yes, it's.
How about now?
It came back up. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Allow me to continue. That among these challenges requires policy-driven actions towards moving into adaptive and forward-looking governance systems. We can see in the right boxes that the current global challenges, in our view, include frequent amendments to the global shipping standards. There is also fragmented governance and overlapping mandates, climate impacts, marine pollution, maritime safety and security risk, digitalization, human element issues such as skills, the ability to conduct safety inspection, and the enforcement capacity. So looking ahead to the future and emerging challenges, we also need to address such as net zero shipping, pollution beyond emission, autonomous and mass operation, or the maritime autonomous surface ships, cyber risk, seabed governance, including BBNJ treaty, Arctic routes, and also ensuring just and equitable transition for alternative energy. And the one that remains important is the future-proof seafarers. And here is the, I like to translate what are the challenges into the matrix. So I would hope that it will not cause you confusion with the complexity, but I would like to make it simple. that the cascade across safety, trades, digitalization, human element, and security. So these challenges are interconnected. So it is when a decision made in one area, such as decarbonization, so it will directly affect ship design, fuel choices, port infrastructure, and bunkering. Also, advanced training, safety inspection, and enforcement capacity. Another challenges such as digitalization and autonomous shipping. So this also require influence to cyber risk management, certification, liability of human element, requirements, and regulatory oversight. If governance frameworks are not aligned, so it will emerge gaps to my extent. These key messages from this metric that we must manage maritime issues as an interconnected system. So it is not an isolated technical files, and also requires an effective coordination between maritime actors in this level playing field. So I would like to turning to IMSA's audit and what Indonesia has learned from the audit. And it was conducted in 16 to 20 June 2025. The audit assessed how Indonesia implements and enforces its obligation under 9 mandatory IMO instruments. You can see in the screen. So the assessment or the audit was carried out using the III code as the standard. So which provide a standardized framework for evaluating port state, flag state, and coastal state responsibilities. So the auditors applying this audit using a clear method, using an interview, direct observation, and the sampling of record. So for Indonesia, this audit provide an opportunity not only to demonstrate compliance, but also identify areas or systemic improvement across the institution. And I need to convey that learning from our experience, that multi-stakeholder engagement and interagency coordination are essential factor in making the audit is success. And turning again to my slide. So I would like to share that when conducting the audit, the IMSA's auditor are objectively assess how member state implements and enforce IMO instruments in practice. So they evaluate flag, port, and coastal state obligation, and also verify national legislation. They also identify gaps in implementation mechanism and assess international roles, competence, and also the coordination between the related agencies. So, and the auditor also carry review objective evidence. So they will see how the certification process, the surveys carried out by the inspector, and also the casualty investigation, and also the oversight function to the recognized organization. So, and the bottom line is they observe how procedures are actually applied by the maritime administrations. And resulting from the audit, there are non-compliance and observation. So this is also as essential elements. And when they look into the bigger picture, the auditors want to see how the transposition of the IMO instrument into national law, and also the form of communication between the maritime administration and the IMO. So the essential key point that IMSAS examine that the system are working effectively within the maritime administration. So it is not actually based on the paperwork. So they want to see the process and how it works. And I think this will be my last slide. So what we can learn from the audit, what Indonesia has learned. So we divide into two substance, which is the pre-audit. This is important. So it is also a need required by member state to prepare a structured preparation. And also, it is essential to conduct a mock audits and internal reviews to help administration to identify gaps. Another lesson that we learn is to conduct an internal audit and exercise. This is also important for us. And to check our readiness that we can also be prepared for the actual audit. And aside from that, member states can also introduce the technical cooperation. So they can learn to each other how the audit and being audited. And lastly, it is also equally important. So the member state have to develop the policy document about national maritime strategy, the covering that the port state, flag state, and the coastal state obligation. And for the post audit, we see that when the audit delivered its findings, so must be translated into a national action. The corrective action plan. And effective follow-up above requires a realistic timeline that we should set in responding to the findings and observation. So we must also write our corrective action plan, setting up the targets, how to complete it, and coordinating with the IMO Secretariat, and also wishing, I think, for the positive or constructive result from the audit. So for Indonesia case, we have submitted our corrective action plan in December 2025, and also pending review from the audit team leader. So that will be my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mirajaya. While you were running your presentation and as we wait to transition to the next slides, which I will be actually sharing on behalf of one of our panelists, I should point out that we have been receiving questions and some quite active questions from some of our participants. Let me just turn to the next deck for. As I said, I will be just running this deck for our next panelist, whom I have pleasure in introducing, Ms. Medina Thiam of the WMU class of 2014. Medina is currently technical advisor to the General Director at the Maritime Administration in Senegal. I hand over the floor to you, Medina.
Thank you very much, Professor Aref. I would like to say bonjour à tout le monde. And thanks also all the participants and the World Maritime University for inviting me for this important panel on this great topic, maritime governance, which leads our countries to performance and efficiency. So now I'm going to talk about the current and future challenges. Next slide, please. Yeah, to the current and future challenges that we are facing in our country and also in our maritime space in the western part of Africa. The first one is technical. We have technical issues about maritime administration, and financial challenges are well. The legal framework is not so is not so well transposed. The international standards are not well domesticated in our national legislation. We can talk about here the pillar codes, the SOLAS Convention, the MAPOL Convention has written on the slide the MDG code, the ISPS codes, and the accident investigation codes, and also the procedure. Due to what? A lack of education and skills, we have as well an insufficient interagency collaboration and cooperation. Next slide, please. What can we say now about the IMSAS audit? We have one IMSAS audit in 2016 in Senegal, but fortunately it is not public. I can just share some information with you about the findings. The main findings is the absence of transposition of some international laws has mentioned has a big challenge in the region, and the lack of regulatory procedures such as procedures on MARPOL, how can I say, implementation, and deficiencies through fourth flag state inspection and post-state control. We have also noted an absence of severe sanction which have been observed by the IMO IMSAS audit team. The Maritime Administration as well is taking today several audits to permit to have a new roadmap, because next year we will have a new audit from IMO, and we must identify the vulnerabilities and also draft a new, how can I say, action plan to be able to become efficient. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about a topic which is very important in our country, the fisheries sector. The fisheries sector is essential for us because it is the most important area in the maritime sector in Senegal. It is the first contributor sector in the GDP, and it is employing as well more than 600,000 people in Senegal, with less than 200 industrial fishing vessels and less than 20,000 canoes, small artisanal fishing boat. What can we say? In West Africa, and I think globally in the world, has a maritime security threat. We are facing IU fishing. The illegal fishing is undermining all the efforts of maritime nations and also all the serious fishers and particularly the artisanal communities. We are facing this illegal activity in Africa because we have the most resources and the longer coastline and very rich and abundant in fish. And that's why you have the criminal coming in our zone and stealing our fish, our resources. The Kunlus case is a important case and very famous case in Senegal, because it deals with a fishing vessel named Kunlun, but having more than 19 identities and flying and navigating through international water and particularly Antarctic water and still fish at this zone. They landed, the fishing vessel landed to Thailand with a false fish product declaration. After inspection of the authorities, they have seen this false declaration and decided to detain this vessel. The vessel escaped, and we got a proper notice from Interpol saying that this vessel is going to come in the African waters. they came exactly in Senegal, as told by the Interpol investigators. And at that time, we made several inspections, a series of inspections that led to see the similarities between the Kunlun vessel and also the new named Asian warrior marked on the vessel. As you can see, Asian warrior on the vessel, on the pictures, on the slides. So finally, what happened? What can we see? We decided to put this with Interpol in more detailed inspection. And finally, Spain decided to put this case on court. The ship owner was jailed, and it is a matter of cooperation and collaboration between the national agencies in Senegal and also the international organization, bilateralism, which help us finally to solve this issue. And the vessel is sold now in Senegal, and serious fines were paid, by the ship owner. Next slide, please. In the case of fisheries, Senegal is part of the UNCLOS. The FAO also has a member state of FAO, of the PSMA, of the IPOA, and also all the binding convention of ILO, and also the International Maritime Organization. And from this international architecture of legality, we have also the national legislation helping us to tackle all challenges that we have regarding the safety of seafarers, the safety of fishers, and also the protection of the marine pollution, from the marine pollution, and also all the question of condition of life at sea and working for seafarers and fishers. Next slide, please. Now we are trying to go to a effective and performant maritime governance. Why? Because we are knowing new trends in the maritime sectors. We have this topic of maritime decarbonization, and we have also all the topics of how can I say technology, digitalization. So we must take the train. Now in Senegal, we have in the Maritime Administration a new director. And with him, he's trying to identify all the maritime challenges that we are facing and streamline the sector. We need to have a performant frameworks to have an efficient maritime governance. For that, we are aware that we need transparency and adoption of best practices to be able to enter in that area of maritime governance. Next slide, please. How can we get to that? We must elaborate strategies about blue economy, strategies on safety and security, strategy on maritime decarbonization. I have the opportunity to be in a workshop in Namibia in November with IMO and MTCC Africa. And there we have decided to build a cooperation, a collaboration within the agencies in Senegal and also with those organizations, the international one, because we want to take the train and we want to be in, even if we don't have the fleet needed for maritime decarbonization, but it is important to be prepared to have one and to have all the facilities and to have all the procedures for doing our work in flag states duties and also in port state controls. And next, I think next week we will have I have asked to have a workshop on maritime decarbonization in Senegal with IMO and MTCC. We are planning to do that. So collaboration, cooperation are the key to lead to maritime governance and to have this effectiveness from our maritime administration. Education is essential, and it is also an opportunity for me to thank again the World Maritime University for its excellence education, and the regional and the national institutions who are preparing the champions of the maritime sector. Next slide, please. This is my last slide, and I just want to say that maritime governance must have the leaders and visionary people. It requires also a political will. The authorities must be aware of the new public management principle, taking them into consideration, principally transparency. We need transparency to tackle corruption. We need also public participation. We need to take the precautionary principle, the ecosystem approaches. We need to put everything inside, everybody in that way to go in the effectiveness of the maritime governance, for not letting anybody behind: the administration, the concerned stakeholders, the maritime communities, the coastal communities, and all the users of this maritime administration. For what? For the inclusion of all the population, for also the benefits of the maritime stakeholders through collaboration, cooperation, and vision and ambitious program for having this maritime governance in all over the world and the maritime community. Thank you very much. Medina Cham from ANAM, the Maritime Administration. If you want to discuss or extend, you have my email address. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you immensely for that, Medina. And just to confirm that our audience have been extremely active in the questions and the chat line. I now turn over to our next speaker, who's a great friend of WMU, Commander Enrique Vargas Guerra, of the WMU class of 2006. Commander Vargas is head of the IMO Audits Division at Directemar in Chile. Over to you, Enrique.
Thank you, Professor, for this kind introduction. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants. It's a pleasure to join this WMU webinar on contemporary maritime governance. My remarks today are framed around a simple idea: why global maritime and ocean standards are well established. Their effectiveness depends increasingly on national capacity and regional cooperation. So from that perspective, I will share some reflection based on Chile experience, including our engagement with the INSAS and our regional cooperation through the Permanent Commission for the South Pacific, CPPS, and RAMPAS, which is an initiative that I will show you later on, in the context of course, emerging challenges such as BBNG agreement. Okay, yeah, it's fine. So as you can see there on the screen, maritime and ocean affairs has become a central pillar of the state governance. Today, governments operate in a complex environmental shaped by IMO instrument, multilateral environmental agreements, climate action commitment, and new global frameworks such as BBNJ. At the same time, effective maritime and ocean governance is therefore not only about rules or standards, it's about building institutions that can actually make those rules work, supported by strong coordination and cooperation, such as nationally and regionally. So in this context, credibility, safety, environmental protection, climate change resilience, shipping decarbonization, and the human element are no longer separate issues. They are all interlinked governance challenges. The IMO doesn't only set global standard, it also provides a common framework that helps member states cooperate, building capacity, and learn from each other. Regional cooperation therefore plays an increasingly important role in supporting national administration and ensuring consistent application of international standards. A practical example is the operational network of Maritime Authority of Latin America, where maritime administration and authorities regularly exchange experience, share good practices, and agree on mechanisms for mutual assistance and cooperation. This type of regional cooperation, of course, helps address common challenges, strengthens institutional capacity, and support the global implementation of the international maritime standards, in line with the objective of the IMO. So let us talk about IMSAS. Chile experience with the IMO member state audit scheme shows that IMSAS is not simply a compliance exercise, but also a strategic governance tool. Through IMSAS, member states receive an objective and evidence-based assessment of how effectively they implement IMO instrument across flag, port, and coastal state obligations, as well as how their institutions coordinate and operate in practice. The left side bullets highlight the broader impact beyond compliances. For Chile, IMSAS has contributed to stronger interagency coordination, improved documentation and systems, and increased readiness for audits and international engagement. Most importantly, it has reinforced a culture of compliance and credibility as a responsible maritime state. We have now a coordination committee for the maritime administration, and we have elaborated since 2001 a general maritime strategy, which is now under review. Building on the experience of the first audit cycle, the IMO adopted the revised IMSAS framework and procedure under Resolution A1211. This update framework introduced several important improvements: a stronger follow-up and corrective action plans, enhanced consistency and audit quality, improved planning and audit management, and clearly linked with the IMO technical cooperation. This reflects a clear shift from formal complaints to effective implementation, fully aligned with the modern public government and principles. From Chile perspective, this evolution of IMSAS confirms the value of investment in institutional coordination, internal audits, and governance readiness, which has shown us a proof from Indonesia experience too. It's also reinforced the relevance of IMSAS as a foundation for addressing emerging challenges in maritime, ocean, and governance. In this sense, the revised IMSAS framework is strengthening exactly the same institutional capacity that states will need to implement new global commitments. For example, BBNJ agreements. That brings us to the next slide of this presentation. So the BBNJ agreement marks a major milestone in global ocean governance. Its implementation presents clear challenge, high coordination requirement, a strong scientific demand, and the need for institutional capacity beyond national jurisdiction. At the same time, based on the pillar of the agreement, it offers an opportunity to strengthen cooperation, research and technology transfer, promote ecosystem-based approach, and connect global commitment with practical action. Chile is offering to host the BBNG Secretariat in Valparaiso. It will help, of course, to decentralize the UN system and generate regional benefits through scientific knowledge, technology development, and the strengthening of local research capacity. So it came to the last slide. Chile, as you know, has a strong maritime identity with a high dependence on the sea for trade and economic development. Over time, it has developed a solid ocean policy aligned with the international treaties and global commitments. Chile also plays an active role in leadership role in ocean and fisheries governance through its engagement with the CBPS, which is the Permanent Commission for the South Pacific, which was established in 1952 by Chile, Ecuador, and Peru through the Santiago Declaration, which laid the foundation for the international recognition of the 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic zone of coastal states. CBPS promotes regional cooperation in maritime and ocean affairs, supports conservation and sustainable use of marine resources, and provides a common regional voice in international fora. So as a regional response to BBNJ in 2024, it was adopted the Regional Network for Marine Protected Areas, so-called RAMPAs, and is a strategic plan through which CBPS offer a practical regional mechanism to translate BBNJ commitment into coordinated actions. Our approach is strongly supported by Chile in line with our ocean governance vision and commitment to the regional cooperation. The objective of RAMPAS is to strengthen regional cooperation for the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity in the Southeast Pacific. Through RAMPAS, CBPA member states and others, countries that's being joined, work together to coordinate the management of the marine protected area, share scientific information, and build collective activity capacity. RAMPAS also provides a practical region platform to translate global ocean commitments, including the BBNG agreement, into coordinated action that reflects shared ecosystem and regional priorities. So that's came to our last. To conclude, I would like to emphasize that global maritime and ocean agreements are essential, but they are only effective when supported by strong institutional and actual regional cooperation. INSAS strengthens national capacity. Regional frameworks such as CBPS and RAMPAS amplify collective impact. Together, they help translate global commitment into real and lasting outcome at sea. So thank you so much for your attention, and I am open to question later on in discussion.
Thank you incredibly, Commander Vargas, for this wonderful insight. As we close our world tour of regional perspectives, we come a bit closer to where we are in Europe, more specifically the south of Europe. And we are joined by a good friend and colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Bitsara, who is Senior Consultant on Maritime Decarbonization at Ricardo PLC. Elizabeth, please lead us through the final 10 minutes of the panel session. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Arif, and thank you for the invite as well. I will try to be as quick as possible, to not delay. Talking about Greece, most of you probably know that Greek is a large ship-owning nation. We are an IMO Category A Council member forever, actually, for this biennium too. We are quite active within the IMO, and we have completed an IMSAS audit last time in 2022. You might want to check the Hellenic strategy on the implementation of the IMO instruments, which is available on the website of the Ministry of Shipping. And Greece is a fervent supporter of the institutional role of IMO. And I would like to highlight that because at the same time, Greece is also an EU member state and very actively participates in the shipping working party of the Council, seeing that we have such a large interest in shipping. What happens within the EU is that we negotiate the maritime files actually long before London, long before the IMO meetings, because we have to coordinate our positions as EU member states. So we've got internal EU negotiations taking place on the positions that the EU member states will argue, will defend on matters that the EU has either an exclusive or shared competence. This depends on the treaties actually, and whether the EU has regulated or has not regulated in a particular area. So regardless of the fact that Greek shipping accounts for 60% of the EU-controlled fleet, we have one opinion, one vote within the 27 member states. So it sometimes might be hard to defend the national shipping interests within this context. So talking about the major maritime challenges, I would like to concentrate what we see as major challenges from the EU perspective as the European representative in this panel. And I would like to concentrate in 4 areas: decarbonization, EU competitiveness, geopolitics, and funding. I will identify those as the major issues. So starting with fleet decarbonization, this is the issue of our times, the major issue. Within the EU, shipping accounts for 3 to 4% of total EU GHG emissions. However, the EU is very environment friendly. It has set as a goal to be the first CO2 neutral, carbon neutral continent by 2050, and has legislated extensively to achieve this goal. So I will stand more on the ETS extension to maritime transport and the FuelEU Maritime Directive, who both measures have brought great changes for EU shipping. But at the same time, the Greek and the European ship owners are called upon to make large investments in order to comply with these measures, while the alternative fuels for shipping are still in the R&D phase. We've got safety issues, we've got production issues. Our ship owners do not know where to invest actually, which is the best fuel to invest at this stage. The compliance costs is great. At the same time, you know what happened with the IMO Net Zero framework probably. It was delayed, the voting for next year, and nobody knows what will happen in the end next year. And we've got other relationships that are forming at the international level. We know that the Trump administration has quite a bit turned things upside down within the IMO and is against price mechanism for CO2. And the Greek ship owners, amongst all this situation, have invested heavily on LNG as fuel, and are now a bit devastated by the IMO Net Zero framework that actually cancels a bit these investments. What the Greek administration tries to do at this stage We are having a structured and ongoing consultation with our stakeholders. As an administration with a great fleet, you've got to do that. These are the ones that are going to invest, and these are the ones that are going to implement any adopted measures. So you want their opinion, and we might be an EU member state, but we also have our national interests. Greek shipping contributes approximately 7% of the national GDP. This is huge. So you sometimes need, to break the eggs and be the odd one out and not always agree with your counterparts and friends within the EU Council. The last MEPC voting actually has highlighted how things have changed in international maritime regulations. So nowadays, you cannot just go to a meeting and think at that time what you're about to say. You need to have arguments. You need to have scientifically grounded arguments. The things are complex nowadays. The issues are complex. The negotiations are really hard. So the Greek administration, like others, has to employ more technically qualified personnel or even turn to external advisors to obtain more evidence and more arguments. And of course, you need to lobby and you need to be extrovert in order to form alliances that you will need during these negotiations. And of course, a major issue for Greek shipping and the Europeans as well is to maintain the competitiveness of EU shipping. Some milestones in this regard have been in 2024, the Draghi report on EU competitiveness, which has shown a decline of EU fleet share. We have to deal with fervent competition by non-EU shipping centers. And then in 2025, we had a Deloitte study on the same issue that pointed out to some issues that have to be taken care of in order to remain competitive. And a very illustrative case is the Hellenic State Aid case in this regard. For 10 years, we have undergone an examination by the European Commission. They have questioned the Greek tonnage tax regime, that it was too broad in terms of scope and beneficiaries. After 10 years, this case closed. And the bottom line is that the Greek government agreed to align with the EU rules, but at the same time, the competitiveness of Greek and EU shipping has been preserved. So the EU rules continue to allow taxation based on e-fleet tonnage, and ship management companies remained exempt from dividend taxation, which was a major issue for the Greek maritime industries. So it seems that things are shifting. In Europe, we want to be forward-thinking in terms of sustainability and decarbonization, but at the same time, we have to take care of remaining competitive. And geopolitics, we all know, that we live in difficult times. We have wars around us. We have the Red Sea crisis. We have a different tariff policy, mainly from the US, but it goes all over around the world. So what the EU, what the Greek Maritime Administration does, we would like to separate shipping from politics and political tensions. Our aim is to safeguard the uninterrupted flow of global trade and shipping transfers goods all around the world. So it has to remain like that. During COVID, shipping still managed to transfer goods all around the world. So upholding neutrality remains a decisive factor for us for effective maritime governance. And last but not least, funding. In order to manage all these investments and to solve all these issues, you need large investments, especially for decarbonization. The EU funding has proven to be a bit problematic in this area. Till now, they're trying to change this aspect, and traditional maritime funding has changed. It doesn't depend on banks anymore. We have other funding schemes. all around. And national maritime administrations are nowadays, they are not the observers. They are actually expected to engage in funding issues. The EU ETS and the FuelEU Maritime have generated sources of income for states. So it is a big issue how to allocate these resources to your shipping industry. And you have, of course, pressure from your stakeholders in this respect on how to allocate these resources. And you sometimes, again, need to obtain expert guidance and base decisions on robust data. And this is my final slide. Upon everything that I have gone through really rapidly, some considerations for the future would be, and yeah, also some highlights for the Greek maritime administration and Greek maritime industry to ensure the necessary funds for alternative fuels, for the R&D, especially of these fuels, international measures. We do not want to have a patchwork of regulations around the globe, safeguard competitiveness, international trade, and of course to preserve the normal operation of international shipping amidst adverse sometimes situations. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Elsa, for closing this loop of the regional perspectives.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you all to all the panelists for these amazing presentations. We now, I think, just in time, enter the Interactive Governance Lab. I am joined by my colleague, of course, Dr. Romero, who has been the inspiring mind behind this event. We want to hear from our audience, and we've been hearing actually through the many questions that were received. We will set, however, the stage now for a poll. So I turn to my colleagues to launch poll number 1 and poll number 2. And I will give you a minute or two, perhaps, to answer these. These are multiple choice questions focusing on maritime governance. And by the way, us, the hosts and panelists, cannot vote. So it's all democratically set that the audience influences the directions of the Q&A. While the questions are coming in, I was wondering how this question of maritime governance reflects the governance lab concept. And I was hoping that perhaps one of our panelists could maybe join me in giving their thoughts on it. In terms of this regional focus of maritime governance. So what is the greatest maritime governance challenge in your region? Carolina, do you feel that this kind of reflects a bit how we want this governance lab to go forward?
Well, I think that from the presentations we can already see some of the main challenges. As you could see, well, for everyone attending the webinar, we have the idea of the webinar was to present challenges in different regions of the world. This is why we have one participant, one of the speakers from Asia, we have Africa, Latin America, and Greece. As we could see from some of the presentations, while Medina Tiam speaks about the problems detected in the audits, the transposition of legislation in African countries and other countries as well. Then we see Greece having to coordinate their position in IMO with the EU. So very, very different situation we see here. And also EU fishing in Africa, and then when it comes to Indonesia, more on the cybersecurity side, on the compliance with the audit, and then from Chile a very different perspective, being even offering the seat for the BBNG agreement. I don't know if we go. There are a number of questions in the chat that I see for the speakers. I don't know if we go reading that by one, the ones that are addressed for speakers.
Definitely, we could start with that. Just before we do that, I would like to point out that we definitely see a couple of trends in the governance lab, in the sense that there is a strong emphasis in terms of challenges for maritime governance, in terms of weak interagency collaboration, which was referred to by almost all of our panelists. Second in line come almost neck to neck the slow regulatory adaptation to new instruments, international instruments, as well as balancing environmental, social, and economic considerations. That's also a bit of a tough one in terms of challenges. Perhaps we can, yes, Carolina, my thought was to maybe start with, as you said, do you have a selection that you would like us to zoom in on in terms of the many questions that we've received? I can definitely pinpoint one particular question, which is a bit of a joinder of two questions. And that is speaking very much closely to the issue of the transposition of the international norms. The question reads as follows: how to manage just and equitable transition for developing states, and particularly small island developing states. I know that we don't have a representation in the panel for SIDs. However, I think all of our, a lot of our audience and panelists come from developing countries. In other words, within developing states, the question reads, we can read and understand the global standards or rules, but because of limited resources, we cannot always implement them. So what are the recipes? And I thought I could maybe prompt Commander Vargas on that generic question and kind of challenge, building on the experiences that you've gathered in your remote maritime country of Chile.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you for the question. As far as I understand, the question is related with the the challenging for transporting the international standard within national legislation. It's a big challenge, not only for less developing countries, but also for developing countries too. What I have said and saw in this issue that how to address that problem. IMO is carrying out a project. It's called a thematic project. Within that thematic project, as a technical cooperation assistant, they provide consultancies to need assessment programs. So the need assessment program look within the specific problem of the country. Of course, here, if we see that there are too many countries in this position, in this situation, a regional approach is also welcome. So it's a big challenge. Transporting, I think, is one of the most important because sometimes countries has different model of transporting legislation. For Chile, it's not easy. In our case, we have to go to the Congress. In particular, even for a little amendment, we have to go to the Congress, and that engage with other government agencies. So it's become very, very complex. So for other countries, national authorities, for example, or national administrator has the position to enact regulation. So, and sometimes it's the same maritime authority or maritime administration. So there is no problem with that. It's very easy and quick. The problem also is not only an issue to enact new legislation. You have to implement it. So that is the big challenge. So it's a dual situation, transporting international law within the national legislation, and it came together with the implementation. That is another challenge, of course.
Thank you for that, Commander. I guess just helping out here, I definitely, yes, think that we have some questions directed nominally to some of our speakers. One particular question for Mr. Mirajaya from one of our participants. And the question reads, in the lens of agile governance, what mechanisms have been established in Indonesia to ensure that findings from a port state control inspection are instantly accessible to flag state surveyors to prevent recurring non-compliance? I wonder if you would like to answer that, Barca.
Well, that is a hard question, I would say. So yes, I would see that from the expectation raising from this question that the administration should have documented and also working systems. So it is also to ensure that the PSC or port inspection and findings are captured and also doing by the competent PSC officers by his clear ground on his finding, and also this distributed internally. And learning from my experience about what PSC findings. So in our region, we are the members of the Tokyo MOU. So we have set a mechanism on to the reporting, also receiving feedbacks from the flag states. I think that would be working properly now. And also, if it is happen between ship, say, in other region under the different MOU, so it should have something like a channel of communication between port states and flag states. So my understanding is that well, if it is talking about the channel of communication, it could be done properly by say the simple ways to email and by phone. And if the port state requested that the flag state should rectify the ship problem, so they can come come to the location where it should be a rectification to that issue or deficiency. So that would be my generic answer to that. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I think that, in fact, I know that Commander Vargas is volunteering to answer some questions about IMSAS. Perhaps we can just defer some of those questions regarding IMSAS and deal with one particular generic issue, which ties in with what we have just been talking about, and that is interagency collaboration. I think, Medina, you were one that emphasized very much that concern, and you thought that it is a measure of real progress in maritime governance. Now, talking from your region of the world, do you feel that what great strides have been achieved in Senegal, is that something that can be generalized across the African subregions or regions? Because I know that you have great collaborative frameworks within both your specific subregion and beyond that.
Thank you for the question, Professor Arif. Indeed, we are working closely with the sub-region committee and as well with the MOCA, as well with African Union, and also bilateral cooperation is really, how can I say, essential for us, because we lack of financial capacity and capabilities. So it's around those elements of multilateralism that we can have more than transfer of technology, and we can discuss around a table during a meeting, during a elaboration of protocols and memorandum to, for example, I can just give an example on fisheries, to create more space maritime zone or safe waters in our region. We have a collaboration with other African countries like Mauritania. I'm just talking for Mohammed in the offshore oil and gas cooperation, because we are sharing the same resources on offshore. So we need also the operational, how can I say, institution, which is the armed forces, the Navy in my country, controlling the waters, and also going beyond Senegal, Mauritania, Gambia, in the sub-regional committee, and making joint patrol to surveil the African regional western part of Africa waters and the maritime domain. It is essential to build cooperation. It is essential to have collaboration between the agencies in the country, and also move from the international community and not being only on the regional. We have to go up to upgrade the cooperation. That's why with IMO, we are trying to be more present at the International Maritime Organization and to build also projects with the UNDP, with Norway, with France, with Canada, with the JICA, with, how can I say, South Korea, Japan, in so many projects and programs to help Senegal, even if you don't have money, but to build a strong maritime country and also having means to develop this maritime, because the maritime domain is our wealth. And for that, we need cooperation to protect it and to increase the value, the benefits for Senegal and also all the region and the international community. It is through cooperation that also we can learn about the new global standards and also to perform our administration, to be aware of the vulnerabilities and to try to grow and to go to the objective of the International Maritime Organization, to be part of the international maritime community.
Well, thank you, Medina, for your answer. I will now turn to another subject that I see here, which is decarbonization, with Dr. Elsa Bazzara. There are a number of questions about decarbonization regulation. Are they too strict in the EU? What to expect regarding movement of the EU in alternative fuels and any regulations? And there are also a number of questions on the funding mechanism.
Okay, starting with the EU, what the EU will do, who knows? My guess, at least, is if nothing is voted this year within the IMO, things will remain as they are for the EU. We've got the EU ETS, we've got the Fuel EU Maritime, so the EU has its own standards. The bet for the European shipping industry, at least, is to get over these standards, so to say, and have international standards in place of those. So not to have two parallel systems, the EU one and the international one, and of course to avoid double counting of emissions and double paying of emissions as well. The first priority for the Europeans would be that we've got an international system within the IMO. This could be the IMO Net Zero framework. It could be something that is slightly different. We don't know what will happen. If you ask me, even in this case, it will depend on how strict this framework is for the alignment of the European one with the international one. I mean, the European Commission and the EU will not that easily quit its own standards if not the international ones are equal to the European ones, at least. So I hope that's clear enough, at least as much as I can. With regard to funding, there are funding mechanisms. For the European states, there are other funding mechanisms, but especially for developing states, via the IMO, the World Bank, and other institutions, there are a lot of opportunities for studies, for infrastructure, for projects. I mean, as Ricardo, we now implement a lot of projects in developing states in cooperation with the IMO Green Voyage 2050 for a lot of states. And I believe this can be really, really helpful for developing states to obtain expert advice, to develop national action plans, funded ones, and then to have a pathway towards decarbonization. And I believe this is quite important, and they should absolutely go for it.
Thank you, Dr. Batsara. Does any one of our speakers want to add something in this topic?
if I may, Carolina. So, yeah, just adding what Dr. Elizabeth Basara mentioned that from my regulator perspective, so this is one of the biggest shifts, changing that the technology is no longer waiting for the regulation to catch up. So what we can anticipate, to my perspective, to my views, is we don't wait for the regulation to exist, but we must anticipate what the outcomes that we expect. The it doesn't like catching up the regulation should be exist first, but the technology will follow. So one of the approach that was mentioned by Elizabeth is we can go, we can participate what the IMO project is, like Indonesia also participate in that. This is like controlled pilots project or trials for the adoption of the new technology, particularly then response decarbonization. And one thing to my view that is also equally important is the equity that mentioned that just it is a premise of just an equitable transition. So to my view, the equity means that there is no state that required to comply before the state has an access, to the technology itself and the support from the IMO, let's say, and we can equally get along. Following the transition. So that would be my views. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mirahaya. There are a number of questions. Arif, do you have
Yeah, I think that maybe Enrique, Commander, did you want to address one of the questions regarding, I think, MSAS?
Thank you, Arif. Yes, there is one question, which actually is for all speakers, but it's talk about the INSAS finding, which is fragmented governance, and two, maybe sometimes data sharing. Of course, the findings are expected to identify the problem, and member states have to be able to find the root cause. So since the government structure is could be a little bit complex and not sometimes in line with the logic of the AAA code, that is a problem. But the idea is to address the finding from the diverse areas, of course. So in regard with this experience, our country, to prepare for the audit, we dedicated a functional structure, okay? So that was created to mirror the logic of the AAA code. So, for example, within the same institution, which is in our case the Maritime Authority, we actually are hosting the Maritime Administration entity. So even for the same institution, we had different responsibility and areas. So for example, coastal state obligations. Sometimes the regulation are concerned to the General Directorate, but the operational area belongs to the hydrographic service, for example. So that's is bit a little bit challenging, but how we deal with that is not a perfect solution, but we established a functional structure. We designated a high-level officer in charge of those areas. So one officer was in charge for common area, One officer was assigned to the coastal state and port and flag state. So that officer, high-level officer, was responsible to coordinate everything related with those area of responsibility. Okay, that's why, and that is how we deal with that.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I wonder whether we should just deal with one last question as we head towards the closing. I know that we have a great pool of very rich questions that our team will be working on over the next few days. There's just one question that I will try to have addressed by panelists in a minute. But before we do that, we would like to get the input of the audience on the future of maritime training. And I now direct myself to the alumni office to launch our final poll, number 3. The question being, what should be WMU's priority in updating its curricula or curriculums? Whether it's more case-based learning or a focus on implementation and emerging tech, your feedback as a single choice is going to be vital data for us as we look ahead. And again, we give you about 1 minute actually. I have a question pending that I thought that it could possibly generate some comments from one of our assiduous attendees of IMO meetings. The question regarding cybersecurity. As we really have tried in this webinar to cut across all topics, and many of you have said as panelists that developments in one area can affect all sectors. So cybersecurity is one of them. We heard just last week, I think, from a visitor from IMO, the head of the facilitation section at the IMO, that cybersecurity regulations or guidelines at the IMO will be revamped. So I thought I could just maybe ask any of our panelists to comment on that question of that we received from the audience on non-state compliance with IMO cyber risk management initiatives. If there is any taker.
Dr. Aref?
Yes, Medina.
I just want to give the how can I say the state in Senegal of this question. We are working a lot on security. So this question is really important for us because we are also following the trends in some countries. You can see, for example, how can I say, cyber attack in general in tax, how can I say, ministry, economy and finance. So we are aware of that concern. We are discussing of that concern, but as we are dealing with the audits, the organizational audit, the environmental, and also all the technical audits that we have currently in our administration, I think after that, we will take that issue and deal with that great concern and putting it has an objective and a problem to solve in the National Action Plan and strategy as well, because it is really important for the ship to be safe, to be safe in the control, in the administration by the master and all the team during the navigation. The safe navigation is really important for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Medina, on that contribution in terms of priority setting for countries which are developing ultimately. Any further thoughts? I know we're running out of time from any of the speakers or panelists.
Well, Aref, if I might chime
Please.
in. Well, in Greece, what we're trying to do at least is to implement best practices, best intercity practices in this respect. We have a relevant EU legislation about cybersecurity, not especially for ships, but at least for companies, shipping companies can be well applied. And of course, cybersecurity is a great issue for all. I think we need further work on that, especially we're talking about mass and things like that. These cannot operate without safeguarding the issue of cybersecurity first. Just
Thank you.
very
Thank
briefly.
you. I'm sorry, but it seems that I am pressed to close the webinar. I must express my sincere thanks to 4 panelists for their expertise, to my co-moderator, Dr. Romero, for her vision in conceptualizing this webinar, and to the WMU Alumni Office and the Communications and Conferences team for their seamless support. I also want to extend a special thanks to the current WMU master students who volunteered behind the scenes to assist with the technical setup. The insight from today's panel and your poll responses will directly contribute to the revision of WMU's educational curricula. This ensures we continue to meet our mission as a global center of excellence in maritime training. Finally, please look out for your email. We will be sending out the post-webinar executive summary, best practices in modern maritime governance by the end of this week. Thank you to all our attendees and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.